Exciting news. I think I'm live streaming. Like right now. I think I am. I think I got it all set up. I only figured out how to live stream to YouTube, so that's where it's happening. If you go to Revolutionary Alignment on YouTube, you'll see the live thing, and I'm gonna put a little link in a story just in case you want to come. I think what I'm gonna be sharing is thoughts that I've been having lately about magnetism and receivership, and how that applies to being a responsible human, being a responsible co-creator in these revolutionary times, these awakening times. So if you want to come test the technology and hang out with me and talk about these topics, check it out. Go on over to YouTube and join the live stream. All right, I'll see you there. Exciting news. I think I'm live streaming. Like right now. I think I am. I think I got it all set up. I only figured out how to live. Exciting me and talk about these topics. Check it out. Go on over to YouTube and join the go on over to go on over to about these topics. Check it out. Exciting news. I think I'm live streaming. Like right now. I think I am. I think I got it all set up. I only figured out how to live stream YouTube, so that's where it's happening. If you go to Revolutionary Alignment on YouTube, you'll see the live thing, and I'm gonna put a little link in a story just in case you want to come. I think what I'm gonna be sharing is thoughts that I've been having lately about magnetism and receivership, and how that applies to being a responsible human, being a responsible co-creator in these revolutionary times, these awakening times. So if you want to come test the technology and hang out with me and talk about these topics, check check it out. Exciting news. I think I'm live streaming. Like right now. Exciting news. I think I'm live streaming. Like right now. I news. I think I'm live streaming. Right now. I'm live streaming. Like right now. I think I am. I think I got it all set up. I only figured out like right now. I think exciting news. I think I'm live streaming. Like right now. I think I am. I think I got it all set up. I think I am. I only figured out how to live. I am. I only figured out how to live stream to YouTube, so that's where it's happening. If you go to Revolutionary Alignment on YouTube, you'll see the live thing, and I'm gonna put a little link in a story just in case you want to come. I think what I'm gonna be come. Come. I think what I'm what I'm gonna be sharing, just in case you want to come. What I'm gonna in case you want to come. What I'm gonna be sharing is thoughts that I've been having lately about magnetism and receivership, and how that applies to being a responsible human, being a responsible co-creator in these revolutionary times, these awakening times. So if you want to come test the technology and hang out with me and talk about these topics, check it out.
Check. So I was going to do an in-gathering, and I was going to make the slides, the visual aids that I usually do. And I'm brand new to this technology of live streaming and using OBS and recording it, and not quite sure how to connect the Canvas slides or the Zoom room. There's some technical difficulties that still need to be worked out. But more than that, I've found that when I'm making those streams, when I'm making those slides, when I'm making the visual aids, when I'm writing the content that goes into making those slides, I get into a mode that is extremely cerebral. I am really on fire with these thoughts, with these concepts. And this topic for today is magnetism and receptivity. That's the topic for this month. So I host these events. I haven't done it live streamed like this before, but I host these events through a private Zoom link every month. I host these every month. I'm just going to put the link up on my website. So I've been hosting these events. I've been giving these talks once a month, and I do it on the in-gathering moon. I've been giving these talks once a month, and I usually do it on the ingathering moon, and I might try to do this again on the 20th, because the ingathering moon, which is the waning half moon, we talk a lot at these events about the moon cycles, the cycles of nature, and what this means for us as conscious, awakening humans at this point in our evolution. And for me, it is a lot about the divine feminine. It is a lot about the feminine technologies, the feminine wisdoms that are arising. And I call them technologies because it's tools for living. It's tools for living in the best way that we can. Living as the clearest, most efficient beings that we can, which raises a lot of questions about what it means to be human and what it might mean to live an efficient life. And towards this end, I think about ontology, epistemology, and axiology. So I'm a doctor of occupational therapy, and as an occupational therapist, my focus with my clients is on everything you do that occupies your time and brings meaning and value to your life and constructs a sense of identity. So as an occupational therapist, I'm thinking about, and I go over this with my clients, I'm thinking about ontology, epistemology, and axiology. So epistemology, that means how do you know what you know? When I was in high school, I had this great course. I've had a lot of school. I have a doctorate, I have a master's degree, I have a bachelor's degree. I've been to multiple institutes of higher learning, and to be honest, my high school education, that was tops for me. I went to an international school. It was all international baccalaureate curriculum, and it was just good. It was challenging, and I learned so much, and I was pushed. I was challenged. I did my master's degree and my doctorate at the same time, and I kind of thought that it would, be pushed like that, but it just doesn't. It didn't compare to high school. So my most favorite class in high school was called Theory of Knowledge. And basically it was an epistemology class, because in my school they weren't just teaching us the content, they were teaching us how to think. And they did. A lot of educational programs say that, but this school did. I had a whole multi-year course on how do we know what we know. And I've come to understand this as epistemology. How do we know what we know? Because that informs what we consider to be true. And that's the ontology. What do we consider to be true? And how do you know it? Because if we're taking our knowledge, if we're taking our information from an epistemological source such as authority, there's some benefits there. There's some problems there. Who's the authority? And how do they have that authority? Examples of authority is teachers, or the government, or your parents, religion. How do they have that authority? Sometimes it's because they have the most wisdom and knowledge, and so they have authority. And a lot of times in our society, what we're witnessing in these revolutionary times, we're starting to question a lot of the authorities, a lot of the concept of authority. We're starting to question the knowledge that we have received and that we in turn perpetuate and share through our internalized information, wisdom that we've received from various sources of authority. So authority that's a perfectly adequate epistemological source. It has it has problems. It has benefits. It has problems. Empirical evidence, science. There's that gold standard of the randomized controlled trial. We love that. It feels good. It feels objective. It feels like now that's something that you can trust. That's something that really feels like a fact. We like to feel that science is objective. But I have some concerns about that as well. Science, the scientific process. The scientific process is a beautiful one. It's beautiful. The scientific method is beautiful, and it attempts to compensate for the biases inherent in all of us. And while I respect that attempt, I don't think that it's completely successful. Because we all have our inherent biases, of course. We all have our assumptions. Some of that we don't even realize, we don't even question. It's just the soup that we're swimming in. It's just the soup that we're swimming in. We're not even aware of the assumptions that were going on, that we bring into the experiment. And this shows up in the tools that we create. The very tools that we have to observe our world are designed based on what we already know about our world. So I'm just thinking, like, how will we discover something new when we're only looking for confirmation of what we can even fathom to expect? And I know that there's a lot of great scientists out there asking really, really, really important questions, really deep questions. I mean, you gotta get your truth from somewhere, right? We need to operate with some kind of a framework of what reality is, what it means to be. That's ontology. It's the study of what it means to be. So we have to use some kind of epistemology, and science is reasonable, authority is reasonable. These are reasonable. The other thing with scientific studies, that empirical data, is the bias of funding. A lot of these studies are funded by entities or individuals or corporations who have their own needs and their own interests, and whether intentionally or unintentionally, that's going to influence the study, even if it's not even aware. Just the held sentiment. We're familiar with the observer effect. We've talked about this in other episodes, at other talks. The observer effect, most notably in the double slit experiment. In the double slit experiment, scientists shot a beam of light through two slits, and curiously enough, light shows up as both a particle and a wave, and it depends on whether the experiment is observed or not. When the experiment is observed, light acts like a particle. So it's just like, we talked about this at the last gathering, it's just like a firing line, that's the light, shooting through these two slits, and then what shows up on the back wall is you just see a whole bunch of little bullet holes from all of those little photon particles that are showing up and making an impression on the back wall. But when this study was unobserved, light operates totally differently. Light operates like a wave. The way that we know that it's operating like a wave is when we come back. When we come back, we see on the back wall, it's not those two lines of bullets. What we see is actually a wave interference pattern. A wave interference pattern where the ripples, it's like ripples in the water. There's two pebbles, because the one source of light becomes two sources of light from those two slits. So it's like there's two pebbles dropped, and there's circular waves radiating out from both of those sources. And then those waves touch, they interact. And if both of those waves are meeting when they're both at a peak or they're both at a trough, then they add to each other, and the peak gets higher or the trough gets lower. That's constructive interference. And if those waves meet each other, when one is at a trough and one is at a peak and they meet, they flatten each other out, they cancel each other out. And that's destructive interference. So the pattern that we see on the back wall is this alternating pattern of constructive interference where there's a lot of light, and destructive interference where there's really not any light. And we see this on the back wall, which reveals that the light that was coming through those two slits operates like a wave. We talked about this at length at the Lasting Gathering, which is available for all to see on YouTube. It's available for all to see on Spotify. So check that out if you want to learn more about the double slit experiment. But the point that I'm trying to make here is the observer effect. So the light itself changes when it's observed, and it changes based on our expectations too. And this has been studied, studied with all the biases that go into the study. This has been studied, and our intention when we show up to do objective work, turns out that it's not so objective. Our expectations, our assumptions impact the outcome. So empirical evidence, that science-based, that objective, sensory-based information is not quite so objective as we think. So there's great advantages to empirical evidence. There's great advantages to scientific evidence. There's also some drawbacks there that we kind of need to negotiate. So this is just authority and empirical evidence. There's firsthand empirical evidence. You observe it with your own eyes. That feels very comfortable to trust. Of course, there's all kinds of examples of times where we perceive things differently. This can be as extreme as a traumatic brain injury that completely alters our perception, or like a stroke that we lose half of our visual field. Both of the eyes work, but half of the visual field is just, it's as though it doesn't exist, and the brain compensates for this. We don't even have to have a brain injury in order for this phenomenon of the brain filling in what it doesn't know to occur. At the center of our vision, right there when the optic nerve connects with our eyeballs, we have a blind spot. And look around. Does it seem like you're missing any information there, right there in your central vision? Does it seem like anything's missing? Not to me. And that's my brain just filling in the gaps. Isn't that wild? And that's just one example. There, I could go on. There's many, many examples of how our own empirical, firsthand observations are not as tied to truth as we might think. So everybody's got to weigh out these different sources of how we know what we know and figure out how that then informs your ontology. What is it that you know when it comes to what it means to be human and what our job is here? And that gets into axiology. So we talked about epistemology, that's how you know. Ontology is what do you know. Axiology is, okay, then what are you going to do about it? And again, I'm an occupational therapist. I'm interested in where the rubber meets the road. This is not all just abstract talk. This is deadly practical. This is extremely practical. So, how do we know what we know? What do we know about what it means to be? And what do we do about that? My dad's an engineer, and he is a phenomenal, Mr. Fix-It guy. He's a great person to have on hand, whether you've got a plumbing issue, a construction issue, a structural issue, an electrical issue. He's great Mr. Fix-It handyman kind of guy. Or a cosmetic issue, he's extremely creative, and his projects are really beautiful. And this industrious man, my father, this industrious man, he told me something, and I just keep turning it over in my mind. It's so inspiring to me. He said, respect the material. You've got to respect the material. And he's thinking about physical material that you're building with. They would make a building with, make a, I don't know, an engine with, a sink with. Respect the material. You have to appreciate the properties of the substance, the material that you're working with. Like steel has a certain melting point, I assume. I'm not a materials scientist. Steel bends at a certain point, I assume. Tin maybe does different things. Wood, there's different kinds of wood. They splinter in different ways, and the properties of the material make them more or less appropriate for the particular project. So I'm thinking about respect the material when it comes to humanity, and I'm thinking about the project in terms of life. That's the axiology. That's where the rubber meets the road. Respect the material. And in this work that I've been doing, I am learning a great deal about the revolution, the awakening, the ascension, the enlightenment that we're going through. In brief, our species is going through an energetic shift, and this is impacting us individually. And I know this because I had an experience about 6 years ago or so, 5.5 years ago, where I came to know things at a way that was more clearly true to me than anything else that I had ever known. So this blew authority out of the water. This blew empirical, sensory-based, or scientifically validated information out of the water. The way that I was knowing what I was coming to know is more redolently true to me than anything, than my own name, than my own being. I know these things. For me, it's at the top of my epistemological stack, and I'm not even sure how to describe this way that I came to know. I call it energetic navigation. I call it energetic navigation because when things, whatever it is that I'm considering, a new idea that you bring up to me or something like this, when things seem like they resonate with those things that I have come to know as true, when they resonate with that, then I'm more likely to feel that they are true, and it feels good. I feel my energy lift. As of 5.5 years ago, I have this different kind of sense perception, so it seems, that enables me to gauge things based on their energies and how it resonates with me. That's how I vet it for truth. And it just seems more true to me than any other source of epistemology. And up there in that space, it feels above the clouds. Up there in that space, things interconnect in a different way. Things reinforce each other and kind of validate each other, or it seems that things can't be held up there. So I can't even hold the idea that I'm trying to consider. I can't even hold it in mind in that place above the clouds if it doesn't resonate. But if it does resonate, then it sheds more light on everything else that's up there. That's what I'm working with. That's at the top of my epistemological stack. So some of the things that I've found there, which inform my ontology, these are things that I find to be true. Maybe you find them to be true as well. Things like we are all one. I have found that to be true. Things like we are infinitely connected, inextricably connected to our source. You can call it God. It is what it is, and we are inextricably connected to it all the time. Also, the universe is abundant. That's something that resonates in that above the clouds place. I feel that as true, and I know that it's true. I know that it's true, at least when I can access that above the clouds place. Then I know it. And I know that it's true intellectually because I've decided that above the clouds kind of awareness is at the top of my epistemological stack. I know intellectually that that's true because I've decided that that's the source of information that I'm going to trust. So that factors in to my ontology. So when it comes to respecting the material of what it means to be human, I am, at least intellectually, considering that information. And I say at least intellectually because it has been made clear to me recently that what I think is not always the same thing as what I feel from moment to moment. And I understand that we are co-creators of our reality. And I take that job seriously. That's the axiology that I'm really interested in. That's part of what I feel like we're doing here, is really to come to understand that we're co-creators of our reality and to master that creatorship. So I'm very interested from a strategic perspective on how that happens. I'm very interested in respecting the material from the sake of efficiency. So I'm very interested in what are the components of the material that I am? What are the components of this human being that I am that lends itself towards this creatorship? How does it happen that I create? And I think that what I think isn't the same thing as what I feel, and what I think isn't the same thing as what I really believe. And I suspect that what I believe is what creates reality. And I suspect that what I feel from moment to moment is actually more indicative of my beliefs. So what I feel is what's creating reality. And this makes sense to me. It's a sobering fact because I feel pretty good about my thoughts. I feel pretty good about my ideas. I feel pretty good about my ability to articulate my ideas and share my ideas. This is what I've been doing with all of my slides, all of my informational nuggets. I've been processing information, receiving information, articulating information, and sharing information. And I'm realizing that, okay, I could convince all the people in the world. I could convince everyone that those thoughts are valid, and I think that would be whatever it would be. But I don't think that it's actually going to create our reality to be reflective of these things that we think are true. If we don't feel that we're true, if we don't feel those things as true, if we don't feel them as true, then I don't think that we believe them. And if we're not actually believing them, then I don't think that we're going to create them. And the reason that this is coming through for me one of the sources of wisdom that I draw upon is the feminine. It's feminine energy, it's feminine wisdom, it's feminine magic. And I've studied and I teach Kundalini yoga and tantra, and host women's events and host events for all genders that are in the feminine tradition. And as I study this, as I work with these energies, it definitely seems to me that part of this revolution, part of this awakening, is the awakening of feminine energy. Because that's the material that we are. We need to respect the material, which includes the left brain, analytical, more masculine perspective that understands the distinctions between things, that can conceptualize the meaning of the words and translate that back into meaning and exchange that between people. And we love this. We love this masculine left brain energy. But what is rising right now, and what has been actively oppressed and perpetuated by that internalized oppression, what's rising now is that right-brained awareness, that feminine awareness. This is like the wave in light as opposed to the particle. We've been in a very particle-dominant society. Maliciously so, strategically so, accidentally so, I'm not sure. But it has caused pain, and it has caused destruction, and it has caused inefficiencies in our co-creativity, because this material that we are, it includes both the left brain and the right brain, and I mean that energetically. It includes both the primal masculine and the primal feminine. Everything does, and I'm not saying men and women, I'm saying primal masculine and primal feminine. This is like the proton and the electron. This is the fundamental properties of existence as I know it. So this rising of feminine awareness, it's so interesting to me because it is not information. Some of it is. Some of it is like I'm actually learning information about feminine wisdom, about feminine rituals and traditions and what have you. But the feminine, the right brain, if you like, we can talk about it in terms of that polarity. The right brain is the awareness that actually knows and feels that we are all one, that we are all connected. It's the awareness that can transcend the particulate experience. It's the awareness before the particle. This is the womb before birth. It's the awareness at the end of the existence of the particle. This is the womb, this is the tomb, this is the transformation, this is the ever-changing wave-like nature. And it's, I think, part of the reason why feminine energy has been unknown, largely unknown by me at least. And I know I'm not alone. And I see it in our society. I see a lack of awareness of feminine energy. I think part of the reason why that lack exists is because it doesn't lend itself well to articulation. The very process of articulation is just like observing the double slit experiment. You look, you try to see those waves, and oh, they're a particle. So what do we do when it's like this revolution, this awakening, this ascension, like this feminine wave-like right-brained energy is necessary, and we would be wise to respect the material that we are and integrate that feminine capacity. We would be wise to consider that. What do we do when that very feminine energy itself doesn't lend itself well to articulation? And I want to share what happened for me that revealed to me that what I believe is closer aligned with what I feel than it is to what I think. I want to reveal how I came to know this, and I also want to share this mantra. It's a mantra about the divine feminine. It's Adi Shakti, Namo Namo. Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo. And part of this mantra means that it is the feminine energy through which God creates. So it is the feminine through which God creates. It is the feminine through which we, as aspects of the creators, co-create. It's through our feminine energy that creation happens. So if our feeling is more closely tied to our beliefs, that is what co-creates our reality. So as much as I love intellectualizing and talking about these concepts, these universal truths, like we are all one, we are infinitely connected to our source, the universe is abundant. As much as I love thinking that, I realize that I don't feel that all the time. And that is a barrier to my co-creation, because unless these things move through the feeling self, the right brain self, the feminine self, then these things are not going to be reflected in creation. And the way that I came to realize this about myself, that what I think and what I think I believe is not really showing up in my feeling, was on my birthday. This was my birthday. Just yesterday, it was my birthday. And on my birthday, I gave myself permission to really feel worthy. I didn't know that I didn't feel worthy, but when I really leaned in, the delta between how I feel on any given day and how I feel when I feel like a pretty princess birthday girl, when I'm feeling those birthday vibes, when I'm like, yes, the flowers bloom for me. Have y'all seen the flowers blooming? I'm looking at the flowers and I'm just like, yes, you bloom for me. And I'm vibing with those flowers, and I'm like, oh, and I bloom for you. It's me, it's my birthday. The world shines on me. And that kind of thinking, it changed how I felt. I felt my heart bloom open. I felt so ready to receive, and I've trusted the goodness of what I'm receiving. I trusted the abundance, the infinite supply, and what I wasn't doing. And this was really revealing to me. What I wasn't doing was running thoughts like, and I won't take more than I need. I won't take more than I've earned. There's a limited supply, so I'm actually fine. I don't need anything. And even like people who do take more than their share, they're greedy. And it's because of the hoarding of limited resources that we have these problems in the world. And all of these thoughts, like I do see the disparity of wealth. I do see the unjust distribution of resources, and I see the suffering that this causes. And what I'm feeling is that my seeing of it, my focusing on that, changes my feeling state so much so that I don't feel abundance. When I'm focused on those iniquities, when I'm focused on the unfair distribution of limited resources, I don't feel that the universe is abundant. Even though I think it is, I agree that it is. That makes sense to me. It makes logical sense to me, and I think so. But if I'm not feeling it, if I'm not running it through my feminine creative capacity, then I think I'm being an irresponsible co-creator. And if that's our purpose here, if that's where the rubber meets the road, if that's the axiology, if that's the assumption that we're going off of, it's like we've questioned a lot of assumptions through these discussions. We've questioned a lot of them. And right now, my operating basis, the epistemology that I'm working with, is that energetic navigation, if I can feel it resonate in that higher tone, is how I can describe it. That's all I can describe it. Then I'm more likely to trust it. And that informs the ontology of the material that we are. And we've got to respect the material. This material that we are, it contains that masculine particulate self. It contains that feminine wave-like self. And it is through the feminine that God creates throughout the universe. It is the feminine part that becomes the fruit, that becomes the seed, that becomes the tree. It's always through the feminine that things are born. So if I'm not feeling that the universe is abundant, there's a gap in my integrity. I'm not practicing what I preach. And I just discovered this like yesterday. I just discovered this. So how do we respect this feminine technology that's coming to light? How do we respect this growing wave of feminine technology, this right-brained technology that feels that we are all one, that can and does create? How do we integrate that into our axiology and be responsible co-creators? I suspect it has something to do with feeling. Because if we're not feeling these things that we hold as truth, then we're not going to be creating them into reality. So how do we support the feminine aspect of ourselves, which everyone has? I'm just respecting the material here. These are just the properties of the substance that we are. We all have this feminine capacity. And I think it's time that we're paying more attention to it. Just look around. Like you are feeling that in you. I am feeling that in me. We are seeing this feminine awakening, and that's a part of this spiritual awakening, which is our coming to understand our mastery as co-creators. So this feminine awakening is highly relevant. How do we support this feminine feeling capacity, which is necessary in co-creation? I think once again, we need to respect the material here. Because if we start thinking about how to do the feminine, that's basically mansplaining. It's basically mansplaining. Because the material of the feminine aspect of the self is feminine, and we don't know a lot about this. Feminine wisdom, the feminine aspect of the self, has been very roundly oppressed throughout much of known history. And it's awakening. It's awakening. It's coming to light. So we need to be respectful of its awakening and understand it as its own material, which we need to respect. We need to respect the capacities, the limitations, the tendencies, the propensities of the feminine aspect of everything. So I don't know a lot about it because it's new. It's new for me too. But I am a student of this temple of feminine energy. And some things that I know, which I think are relevant to how we get into our feeling selves, how we actually embody our beliefs to create in mastery. Some of the things that I know about feminine energy is that it's like a wave instead of like a particle. So what does that mean? I mean, that means that it's the ways that particles operate in a cause and effect manner. Our feminine selves operate differently. What we expect to see when light is a particle shot through those two slits and they go right through to the back wall, feminine energy isn't going to do that. It doesn't show up in that same linear fashion. That's another thing that I know about feminine energy. Feminine energy it operates in cycles. It operates in cycles. A lot of what I talk about at these Revolutionary Alignment events, these talks, I talk a lot about the cycles of nature, because that orients us to the wave-like cyclical undulations of feminine energy. That's something that I know about feminine energy. So it's like a wave. It just doesn't operate in the same linear cause and effect way of the masculine left brain logical particulate. It also doesn't mean that it's completely untraceable. We can work with the feminine energy. We can begin to understand it. I suspect that, unfortunately for me, as a hyperverbal person, I suspect that language itself might get in the way when it comes to talking about there I go. Language itself might get in the way when it comes to working with feminine energy, which again is necessary for our mastery in our co-creatorship. God creates through the feminine. We need to understand this feminine awakening that's happening so that we can effectively be human and be co-creators of our reality. Because honestly, these are wild times that we're in. These are destabilizing times. These are even scary times. And if what I'm feeling is that fear or that anger and that injustice, then that's what I'm creating in the world. That's what I'm creating. I'm barely able to even feel what I'm feeling. And I would suspect that it's likely similar for you. Our whole society has been so left-brained, has been so hyper-masculine, that it's hard to even know what we're feeling. And then we try to put it in language, and I think that things of the feminine are lost when we put them into language. So I don't fully know how to be with this feminine energy, but it is coming in strong for me that we need to tap more into it. That is this turning point that aligns us into our creatorship. It has to be felt. It has to be felt. So what I can share, again, I can share the rationale for this. Of course, I can talk rationale, I can talk logic. And I can share the few things that I do know about feminine energy, like it doesn't operate in the same way as masculine energy, and that it's not linear. And we can start to learn more about how feminine energy operates when we learn more about wave behavior. And I talk about the physics of wave behavior in these in-gathering events, these monthly talks. I write about this in my blog, like things like constructive interference and destructive interference. This is relevant to feminine energy. And what else I know, I can just share with you that when I felt like I was the pretty princess birthday girl and the whole universe was blooming for me, my heart opened and I was able to feel the abundance of the universe. So I don't know if it has to be this way. I don't know if for you, your vehicle into feeling these things that we can probably agree are truth. We can agree that the universe is abundant. We can agree that we're all in this together. It might be true. It might be an option for you, that feeling, that kind of radiance. It's birthday vibes. When you feel like you're the birthday girl and you really let the whole world bloom for you. You really feel into that. Just like take a moment and explore it, because all of these words don't mean anything really when what we're trying to get at is the feeling. Take a moment and feel that you are the birthday girl. This whole springtime is blooming for you. Let the petals rain down like sprinkles on the cake. It is good, and you are right to receive them. It's your responsibility to receive them. Somebody's got to be the birthday girl, and you are the birthday girl. Yes, you are. Let it rain over you, and let your heart open. And I suspect that we've got to respect the material. If we're trying to connect with this feminine aspect of the self, we need to treat her like she is worthy. We need to worship her like a queen so that she can trust us. Because the world hasn't been abundantly kind to feminine energy. Is it really that surprising that she's kind of been like, looks like you don't need me here? Is it really that surprising that she hasn't opened and bloomed for us who have so much trouble feeling our worthiness? Because she is us. That's part of our material. And me, letting it all rain on me. This runs countercultural to those ideas that we have of like, well, I really shouldn't take more than my share. And there's really only limited resources to go around, because when I'm thinking that, I'm believing that, I'm feeling that, and I'm believing that the universe is scarcity based. And my friends, it is not. I know that it's not. And I'm discovering that when I think that I'm in the right, being frustrated with, being angry with people who are taking more than their share, I am believing that the universe is scarce more than I am believing that I am worthy, more than I'm believing that the universe is abundant. And when I'm believing that resources are limited, that I am not worthy, that I have to earn my right to receive, when I'm valuing that, I'm seeing that as more than the resources over here of the universe is abundant, I am worthy to receive. It is right and good and responsible to be an open-hearted receiver. It is right and good and responsible to praise the goddess that we all are, and cultivate her sense of safety, cultivate her magnitude, dance with her, sing with her. That is responsible co-creativity. If I'm valuing these threats more than I'm valuing this resource, that's the definition of trauma. That is the textbook definition of trauma. Again, I'm a doctor of occupational therapy. I'm a licensed clinician. And the definition of trauma is when the threats outweigh the resources. So when we're living here in the state of believing that this is where we should be focused, our feminine is scared, our feminine is not blooming to receive, we are living in a state of trauma. And the opposite of trauma is creativity. The opposite of trauma is creativity. So what I'm saying is that it is time for our good, for your good, for my good, for our good, for the collective good. It is time to be strategic and be extremely practical about what it actually means to be human, and about what it actually means to be a co-creator of our reality. And I'm suggesting that what that means is respecting our feminine capacities, coming to understand that feminine energy that's within all of us, seeing it in all of us, interacting with it in her nature. Respect the material. We contain both masculine and feminine, and we got to respect that material if we are going to be whole and complete and effective and get out of this trauma loop that we've been stuck in and actually take the reins in creating our reality. We need to respect our feminine capacities, work with her, cultivate safety for her, dance with her, sing with her, and give her all the good things. Create that sense of worthiness within yourself. It's your responsibility. And if that means that you've got to drop those notions that resources are unjustly distributed, if it means that you've got to drop that then I'm saying drop it. I really think that our state of reality might depend on this. She's got to feel safe. She's got to feel worthy to receive so that she can bloom. And in her blooming, have you seen what nature does when it blooms? Don't you think that our feminine aspect could do this too? Don't you think that she would like to? Don't you think she would be radiant and magnificent? She is. She is. And she's obviously becoming ready for this. This feminine energy is on the rise, and the more we can open up, support her in opening and expanding, lending her fragrance and her abundance, cultivating that sense of our own inherent worthiness, because that's how we feel the abundance of the universe. That is responsible humanity. Thank you so much for hearing me out. I see we've got some comments in the chat. Student of Truth, thank you so much. A he, him, thank you. Thank you so much. But you have been in the feminine for several months, receiving wisdom. Yes. Yes, via CD meditation. Awesome. Wow, that's great. Studying the Sankhya Kurika. Oh, wow. I'm not even familiar with that. Wow. I want to understand that. I would love to hear more. So that's how you're learning. That's how you're gaining insight into quantum physics. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. It is physics. Quantum physics is physics, and it is metaphysics. And metaphysics has been a term to describe like the woo-woo and the hoopla, and I think that's internalized misogyny, actually, because metaphysics, Socrates called it the most essential and foundational branch of philosophy, and it is. Just like we were talking about at the beginning here, I was talking about epistemology, ontology, and axiology. If we don't understand what we are at that metaphysical, that quantum physics, that actual physics level, then we're going to have trouble operating this system that we are and really leaning into our mastery. Yeah, it doesn't make you any money, student of truth. I hear you. Yeah, and the feminine side of me doesn't feel very safe and abundant. Yeah. I think that that's really interesting, because people like you and me who have been students of feminine energy, we are just beginning to tap into sensing our feminine. And for me, I am realizing that she does need to feel safe, right? She does need to feel safe. And my gosh, yeah, this world and the way that it's set up is not, it hasn't felt like a safe space for feminine energy. And I also think that I suspect that part of what we've been doing as we're working with feminine energy is waiting for the masculine to make a safe space. And this makes sense. This makes sense. It's like the Templar Knights. This like the masculine is the shield that protects the feminine. And it makes sense to be in requirement of a strong and safe masculine. And also, it's through the portal of the feminine that the masculine is born into the wise king. So it's like we can't necessarily wait for the masculine to appear, because we kind of need to create him, but we can't necessarily do our creatorship until we feel safe. So this is just like, it's one hand washes the other. We are doing this together. And we are together, and that's why it's so amazing that there are men like you who are working with and aware of this feminine energy. I so appreciate it. It's both at the same time, which we can all do because we all have feminine energy and masculine energy. Yeah, I will look up the book. Yeah, Secret of Sankhya, which interprets. Wow, cool. I'm so into that. Thank you. I'm definitely into that. And I talked about this, what I was just mentioning, how the feminine creates the wise masculine. The feminine creates the wise masculine through the portals of birth and death, the anointments there. I talked about that in I just posted that video on YouTube. It was at our last online and gathering event, which happened at Easter. So I'm talking about the death and resurrection mysteries as feminine mysteries, and how we are awakened into our Christed selves through this death and rebirth through feminine wisdom. So if you're interested in how the feminine creates that empowered, wise, masculine Christed self, check out that video. Yeah, your masculine is about to sign a contract to return to gainful employment, but it doesn't feel aligned. Yeah, that is a really tough negotiation, because so much of the fabric of our reality, and I'm not sure exactly where you're coming from, but I am in the United States, and in the United States we do capitalism here. And that's that whole sense of like, we have to earn our place. We have to earn our livelihood. We have to earn our living. That's what we say, even. That's how we're casting the spells with our language. It's like we have to earn a living. When we know that it's like, here we are in the placenta of our mother. Every need is supplied. So what is going on, capitalism? What is going on? But I don't think that we have to wait for the outside world to seem safe in order to cultivate the feeling of safety. And even if it's just like somehow a meditative practice where maybe we go into that birthday girl space of like, oh, she gets everything that she wants. Yes, she gets the light, she gets the glory, she gets the gift, she gets all the good things. And I would recommend feeling that and receiving that from a feminine place. I'm saying birthday girl specifically. We all have a feminine aspect, and our receiving aspect is feminine. And I suspect that if we really practice into that receiving energy, if we hone that practice, then we might be spending more time in an empowered feminine, and we might actually be spending more time feeling the energy of abundance. When we're feeling all of that receptivity, when we are we're charging the magnet through our feeling. When we are charging that magnet with all of that receptivity, I think that's how we create the reality of abundance. I think that's how the feminine sources it from the infinite void that she has access to. That's like every womb is a portal to the infinite. So the primordial womb that is in everyone and everything's feminine energy can source that abundance and draw it into and birth it into manifest. Because we're seeing it's exactly like you're saying. It's like capitalism is a distortion. It's like we're looking at the world and there's so much grease on the glass. So we got to clear that glass, and but we can't wait for somebody else to clear the glass. We can't wait for the picture to change. We are the one who creates. We are the one who creates the reality that we're interacting with. And we create through the feminine. Adi Shakti, Namo Namo, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Pritam Bhagavati, Namo Namo. It's through the feminine that God creates. So when we are feeling that big, open-hearted, yes, I will receive. When we are willing to be intimate with the infinite. A friend of mine shared this song with me, being intimate with the infinite. And it's pretty tantric. I highly recommend this song. Be intimate with the infinite. When we open up into that, it is sexual, it's tantric. When we're feeling that feminine energy in her safety, in her flow, just like receiving all of the abundance raining down on the birthday girl. That is, I think, how we are responsible co-creators. That's how we create the world of abundance so that we can continue to be in a paramour relationship with that. And that's such a tricky thing. When it doesn't feel aligned to take the job with gainful employment. That's such a tricky thing. A lot of people are a lot of people are coming up against those big questions. Those big questions of like, is that the right choice? And I was speaking a little bit earlier about what I call energetic navigation, where it's, you can kind of feel the energy of the thing that you're considering and feel it in different, I'm new to this, for me, I call it like vibrational strata. You can feel that thing that you're considering and kind of run it through those vibrational stratas and like, can you hold it in the same place as stuff like abundance and unity and worthiness? Does it light up those things more? Or can you not really even hold those two energies at the same time? But we're still, I don't know, like I'm suggesting to a lot of folks to lean into those choices where we get that energetic lift, What would happen if we leaned into the next thing that gave us that big energetic lift, that feeling of like excitement and light? What if we did? What would that look like? It's such a hard call to make, because we still need to be taking care of our physical bodies that are living in this world that is running capitalism pretty hard, still running it pretty hard, but we are part of the change too. This is how the change happens. At least in part, this is how the change happens. And what I'm speaking on is that in that substructural level, the energies that we are, and how that literally creates the world that we're living in. I feel like we're coming to a natural conclusion here. So I just want to re-articulate these main points. We are creating our reality. And I suspect that we're creating our reality through our feminine capacity. And that means that in order to be responsible co-creators, we need to work with feminine energy, not in the same way that we would work with masculine energy. The same rules don't apply. Yes, the energetic lift comes from conversations like this. Yes, okay. Well, let's do more of this. I have these talks every month. I usually do them at the waning half moon. Student of Truth, I would love to connect with you. Like, if you find me I'm on Instagram. I'm of course on YouTube. Like, let's keep in touch. Like, I'm with you. Like, this is what fills my cup. And the more we talk about this, the more we practice this resonance and co-resonance, the stronger it gets in each of us and all of us. So let's do this again. I think that this is a part of working with feminine energy. Even though we're using a lot of language here, we're using a lot of masculine words, we're using a lot of the masculine technology of language, we're also doing something more than that. Like, we are directly vibrationally connecting, and I think that that's even more powerful than the words. So this is an example of how the masculine and the feminine work together. So to be responsible co-creators, we need to respect the substance that is the feminine, lean more into that vibratory being, explore what that means. And what I'm suggesting here today is what it means is feeling good and right to receive, to take it all in, to be so worthy, to be the birthday girl. That is a feeling that I have the capacity to cultivate, and it flies in the face of all of the scarcity thinking that I didn't even know that I was running in the background. I'm suggesting that we drop that scarcity thinking because it makes her scared and she can't create when she's scared. Open the heart into big receptivity. You are the birthday girl. Become that magnet. Become that magnet that invites that abundance. It's your responsibility. Thank you all so much for being here. Many, many blessings to you. I'm going to share this video on YouTube so we can all rewatch it and have a good time. Check me out on Instagram. Check me out on YouTube. I'm going to be doing more live streams like this at least every month. So much love to you all.